another sunrise, here the day comes. To another song for when tears fall down. There's nothing puts a mind at ease unless there's something within, wonder whether you found peace. In the sunrise, here the day comes.
Believe the truth will surface. So many people have prayed for justice. Look at the time that's passed. Where in the hell are the facts? Giving the guilty a pass. Look at the face of an angel. Look at the people that Tabitha touched. Bringing my city together with love. Through the pain, sing your name, sing your song. Tabi's right here, never gone. People angry, secrets in the dark. Standing in this empty park. Tears are falling over broken hearts. Hope this song will keep a family strong.
Your lives have changed since the day that she went away. I pray your family will find peace in some way. I know it's hard to cope. Hope feels like a broken road. Through the darkest days, you're not alone. That's why you're hearing Tabi's song. So just
say her name, sing her song. Even when the tears begin to fall, Tabi's with you, never gone. Keep on praying, God won't let who did this off. Justice ain't that far away, but until that day comes, say her name, sing her song. Even when the tears begin to fall, Tabi's with you, never gone. Keep on praying, God won't let who did this off. Justice ain't that far away, but until that day comes.
how do we continue living without those we love? When in times of need, sometimes we just need a hug. Wish I had the words to say to make you feel more happy. Cause now that your world is different, there'll be no one like Tabi. That's how we feel. Now everybody's
Singing Tabi's song, light your candle, see your smile. You were not alone, you were not alone. Know your heart is aching and that time don't really heal. But your faith in God has kept you safe and always will. Something about this empty park just don't feel the same. When it's pouring, you might see an angel when it rains. Something about this empty park just don't feel the same. When it's pouring, you might see an angel when it rains.
With you, oh how we miss you. It's so much harder these days than it was with you. Blow you a kiss too. Say see you later, never goodbye. Cause when the tears start flowing, Tabi's by your side.
Say her name, sing her song. Even when the tears begin to fall, Tabi's with you, never gone. Keep on praying, God won't let who did this off. Justice ain't that far away, but until that day comes, say her name, sing her song. Even when the tears begin to fall, Tabi's with you, never gone. Keep on praying, God won't let who did this off. Justice ain't that far away, but until that day comes, just sing her song. Just sing her song. Just sing her song. Even when the tears start falling, just sing her song. Even when the tears start falling, even when the tears start falling, just sing her. Say her name, sing her song. Even when the tears begin to fall, Tabi's with you, never gone. Keep on praying, God won't let who did this off. Justice ain't that far away, but until that day comes, say her name, sing her song. Even when the tears begin to fall, Tabi's with you, never gone. Keep on praying, God won't let who did this off. Justice ain't that far away, but until that day comes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Evidence. We're here to continue reading from chapter 7 from the book that was written by Josh Sigler, What Happened to Tabi. Special treat tonight, Josh is going to read for us. Let me bring him on. Welcome, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. It's an honor to be on the show again. It's been a couple of years probably, actually, but it's really nice to be back. And I'm excited to do this for you. It's going to be an honor.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You and I have, since you've written this book, we've gotten to know each other,
Yep.
and we're joining forces.
Yeah. I had stepped away from it. I think that the thing that I've learned, Marv, is that writing about murder is just so heavy on you.
Mhm.
And you've lived and breathed this case like I did a couple of years ago. And I took a step back and, enjoyed some other things. But now I just admire the work that you guys are doing. And I want to say this too, like, thank you to LOS 105 for that song. It just puts a spotlight on,
Yes.
there are talented artists throughout literature and music that come from small towns like that. And that was the first time I'd ever really intently listened and watched the video snippets, and you can still see the pain on the people's faces. So that kind of stuck with me as we get started tonight.
Yeah. All right. So Josh is going to read for us. We're going to stop every once in a while, talk.
Yeah. So there's coming up in a few pages where you left off from before, there's a visual aid. And I think that'd probably be, I don't know, a logical stopping point at first, but
Yeah.
you can let me know, and then we can stop, and we can, if you have something you want to discuss, which there will be surely, because this is really getting to this thick part of it. So
It is. And I'm so glad you're going to read this, because it's hard for me. It was hard for me to read, have things going off in my head and trying to remember those things afterwards. So I can just take notes and stop, and we can actually talk about it.
And it'll give me a chance to catch my breath, because I may be a good writer, but I read at about a 10th grade level. So
that's all right. Look at how I do. I even stumble,
Well, it's hard to, a lot of these documents, we don't get the audio from, right? We get the depositions on paper. So it's hard to project tone and intensity. So.
And Miracle Hearts 2 says, welcome back, Josh. Your book is captivating and well written.
Thank you. That is such a kind comment. I always joke with people because everybody was like, we want your autograph. And I started signing them in crayon at the book signing, because this is not who I am. I put my pants on one leg at a time. So, but thank you for that comment. It's really cool.
You're welcome. Fight for Justice. Welcome in. I'll Be Frank is here. Jill Mosier's here. Andrea, my moderator, I know she said I'll be in and out, so you're good.
Okay.
All right, let's start on the second half. Oh, Misty, welcome in. Let's start on the second half. I'm going to mute myself, and then, because I don't want to be chewing ice and having everybody hear that while you're reading.
Yeah.
And then when I hear something, I'll jump in. And if you remember something and want to do a timeout, and I'll unmute, and we can talk about it too. That'll be fine.
Okay. Just for my own OCD, I'm not going to look at myself read. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it, and then I'll come back when you want a timeout. So if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay?
And Mother of Master says, so excited I could make it as a Tipton County girl. This hits hard.
Sure does.
It sure does.
If you walk the halls of the high school at the same time Tabi did, it hits very hard, because you saw the way she was treated, and it was awful. But anyway, we were at the top of page 121, I believe.
Yep.
We're in the middle of the Andrew Bush deposition with Jonathan Yates' attorney, Patrick Roberts. And where she left off last time, Marv was talking about Bush's time at the pavilion. So this first sentence is going to seem out of context, but we will get into it as we go. So here we go. Well, yeah, pretty much, Bush said. I left that on my own terms, I guess, if that's what you want to say. Rich asked Bush to describe his experience in the pavilion, referring to it as a psych ward, and Bush seemed reluctant to do so, but the point was seemingly dropped as Rich announced that Deputy Pike had arrived with Jonathan Yates. The record at that point states that both Yates and Pike were now present in the room for the deposition. Bush then described his experience at the pavilion and how he had to attend peer classes, journaling classes, as well as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous classes. He then described a history of abuse he suffered at the hands of his mother's partners and the toll it took on him. He was reticent about this point and wouldn't go into detail any more than to say he was subjected to immense psychological abuse. Drew, I'm kind of getting the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there came a time in your life at about 15 years old when you decided that you were on your own and you were going to do what you wanted to do. Roberts said. Yeah, Bush said. Am I right? Roberts asked again. Yeah, Bush repeated. Okay, now that finally came to a head when you were at the pavilion and you walked out? Uh-huh. Okay, and ever since then, you've been pretty much on your own? Yeah. Then Bush described how he would work without a permit at places that would pay him cash, confirming that there was no record of how he was making the money. Okay, that applied to both construction business and also you were selling pills and marijuana or whatever else you did, Roberts asked. You're right, Bush said, explaining that about 80% of his income came from working construction jobs, with the other 20% coming from selling drugs. After the murder, Bush returned to Illinois to his mother's care, and in early December of 2002, a little short of 2 months after Raines was killed, soon after, he asked to be seen by a psychiatrist because he was having nightmares. When did these nightmares start? Roberts asked. The day after Tabi died, Bush replied. When did Tabitha die? Roberts asked. The 2nd of October, Bush said. You recall what day of the week that was? No. I'm going to hand you a copy of the calendar for October of 2002, and you take a look at that, if you would, okay? And October 2nd was on what day? A Wednesday? Okay. What did you do that day? Roberts continued. A little bit of partying. Little bit's an operative word there, timeout. And we'll get into why. Now, as you look at the calendar, are you sure that October 2nd was the day that Tabitha died? I mean, that's the day that's the day that keeps getting brought up, Bush explained. I don't never, and he's really fumbly here. I don't know dates for nothing. I couldn't tell you what today's date is, but you know, that's the date that's been brought up, and everybody's been telling me that's where, you know, so I guess that's it. So when you tell people something, you kind of assume, Roberts pressed him. No, Bush said, I'm kind of assuming the fact that since we're asking me about the second and the lawyer before me, and that's the SIC in here that's the way it's written in the deposition, but I'm sure he meant before you, referring to Roberts. Yep. Asked about the second, and everybody else asked me about the second. So I just assume it must have been the second then. I can't tell you, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly what day it was because I don't. Okay. What'd you do on the day, whatever it was, okay, on Tabitha's death? I woke up in the morning and shot up a couple Oxycontins, Bush admitted. Now, let's stop there. What's an Oxycontin? It's a pharmaceutical drug. What are the ingredients, do you know? Synthetic morphine? What's that do to you? Makes you flopped, where you can't even hold your head up? Makes you flopped, meaning it just dissipates you. I think what Roberts meant there was incapacitates you, but yeah. Roberts was a very old man at that time. Makes you lay down and sleep. Roberts sought clarification. Yeah, you nod out. Okay, so you can't function then when you're on that stuff? You can function if I liked it, you know. I walked around like that, you know. What did it do to you? It made you feel like you were in heaven. Well, unfortunately, I don't know what that feels like. So can you describe it a little bit better for me about how it made you feel? Warm? I don't know. Makes your eyes kind of feel heavy, like they're sandbags. I don't know. You're just fucked up. Like, I don't know, if you drink a gallon of whiskey right to the face, if you just chugged a gallon of whiskey, it'd probably be kind of similar without the dizziness. Now, you use the word shut up, okay? How do you ingest the Oxycontin? With a needle? A syringe? Uh-huh. Okay, where did you get the syringe? 4 diabetics, Bush said, adding that he injected the drugs into his veins and his feet. Ouch. At that point, he then showed those in the room the scars on his feet from the IV drug use. If you've ever had a needle in the foot, Marv is right. Oh, my God. Oh, ouch. The interview got sidetracked talking about Bush's size and previous fights that he had been in before returning to the events of October 2nd. You got up, you shot up 2 Oxycontin? Roberts asked. Yeah, 40 milligrams, yeah, Bush admitted. Okay, and you were pretty lethargic then the rest of the morning? No, I was ready to go do something then. That's kind of like the pick-me-up. Then I woke my buddy up, Chris, and we went out and we smoked. Okay, where'd you take your buddy Chris to? At my house. He was staying with you at the time? Yeah. What's his last name? Chris Baker. What time did you wake him up? I don't know, probably like noon or 1. I'm not sure. What time did you get up? Probably like a half hour before that. Okay, now you're telling me that this shooting up was more of a pickup? I had to do it to get through the day, or I wouldn't have made it through the day. I would have been puking on myself all day. Why is that? Because your body will make you puke if you don't, man. Bush described the opioid withdrawal symptoms. If you've obviously never been an addict, huh? I'm asking you to kind of explain this to me. I don't understand. Well, you can't. Okay, let's say your body attacks itself and starts eating its own insides, and you feel like your stomach's going to throw up through your throat. So you get to the point, and then during the day, and then you have to shoot up to keep feeling good. No, I just do it so that I don't get sick. Sort of preventative then? So did you do that every morning when you got up at that time? For how long has you been doing that every morning? Since I got back from Florida. And when was that? I don't remember what month it was. I don't know. It was late summer. I'm gonna take a drink real quick.
Go for it.
When Bush got back from Florida, he and Baker lived with a friend near county line in State Road 213 in the northeast part of Tipton for a short time there in Tipton County. But by October 2nd, Bush was living with his father, where he and Chris had been staying for a couple of weeks by that time. After Bush shot up and Baker woke up, the pair each smoked a blunt, a marijuana joint wrapped in cigar paper. I don't keep tabs on how many drugs I do, Bush offered. Well, let's go back. Roberts tried to interject. I think this is important. You did the big joint. You had 2 or 3 of those, right? Yeah. Rich then broke into the conversation to clarify the time frame that Roberts was referring to, and then Roberts continued. Okay, all right. Then you were talking about bongs and other stuff. I don't know what that means. It's a pipe. It's got water in it. It gives you a really, really big hit, Bush explained. A really, really big hit? Roberts asked. Yeah. How's it make you feel? Same way, you just get higher easier. Okay, so the bong, how much marijuana is in a bong? About half a gram. Half a gram, how many of those did you have? I'm not sure. I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I can't give you like an overall. Rich broke in again. Is your answer that you didn't know? You don't remember? Yeah, Bush said, I can't tell you how much I did. I can tell you overall throughout the entire night, I probably smoked close to half an ounce. Time out there, right? No, I'm kidding. That's about my average daily smoke. So that's about Bob Marley. That's not in the book, but that's what I'm saying. From a quarter, half an ounce, quarter ounce. Roberts continued his questioning. And that was on top of the 40 milligrams of OxyContin? Now, you described OxyContin as synthetic. Morphine, Bush said. Morphine is when you say synthetic, you mean generic, or I mean man-made? Man-made? Who made it? I don't know. I mean, is it something you got a prescription from, or drugs, or it's a class 1 drug. I can't just get it over the counter. You seem to know a lot about drugs, class 1, class 2, and I know a lot about drugs. Yeah. Where'd you learn all that? Read books, man. Pill books, so I know whether I'm getting ripped off or not. So you were seriously into the business. I was seriously into expanding my line. Yeah. And you were seriously addicted, I take it? Yeah. Now, you did this ounce or half, probably of half a gram of marijuana, and that was your daily smoke routine? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Okay. And you had the 40 milligrams of synthetic morphine? And then did you have any other kind of drugs that day? Yeah. Okay. What was that? Later, I took some Xanax. I probably shot up. I shot up again once more that night with another 40 milligrams, and then I snorted another one later, and then I started drinking on some vodka. Okay, let's go back now. The Xanax, about what time did you take that? Oh, man, I couldn't tell you, dude. Light out or dark out? Dusk, getting dark. How'd that make you feel? Drunk? Okay, then you shot up after that. When did you shoot up after that? When I was at my old trailer. I had a trailer in Windfall that I used to live in, but all my stuff was moved out of it. But I still had the right to be there. So we go over there too. I needed a place to shoot up at, so that's where I went. Who went with you? Chris, and then we seen Brian. Brian was in town already in Windfall, and we just picked him up, and he went with us. Bush lived in a trailer in the Windfall area in northeast Tipton County near a man named Brian Bowen for a time before moving in with his dad. Why did you move to your dad's? Roberts asked. Because my landlord, he was a junkie, just like I was, Bush explained. I'd pay my rent at least, and he'd go. He wouldn't pay who he was supposed to pay because it was really his dad's property, but he rented it to me. But it was his dad's property and everything, and he'd never take his money to his dad. So his dad would come over to my house bitching about rent. And I'm like, so I just moved out, said, screw it. I'm not dealing with that guy. But you still had it paid up your rent? I did. I was paid up for all the way till the end of August, I was paid up until the middle of October, matter of fact, because I told him I'd pay him this much. And after that, I don't know what to do because Brian still had all his stuff in there because Brian kind of helped me out, gave me a TV and a couch and stuff. And Brian never came and I got it out of the house. So did Brian live there with you or no? He just lived down the road. So he'd come over and party at night. He'd crash out over there. You know what I mean? I'd let him stay over there. And he had a TV and couch and stuff that he let me have and everything. So Bush finally begins to zero in on Bush's relationship with Balser. Okay, I'm curious. Did Elizabeth Balser visit you at any one of those locations we've been talking about? He asked. Not like she'd visit me at my dad's like a long time ago when we'd actually associate with each other, Bush said. So prior to October 2nd, the day that you say Tabitha died, okay? Okay. When was the last time you saw Elizabeth? I seen her a week before that, bragging about a bunch of coke and shit. Okay. Tell me about that. She was just bragging about how she got like an ounce and a half on the front or whatever. Switch page. What's that mean? Like without having to pay for it or having to, once she sells it, pay the people back? When she said an ounce and a half of what? Cocaine. Now, did she tell you it was cocaine? Or she just used some other slang term? Well, she called it powder. Powder. And this was approximately a week before Tabby's death, at least. About a week. Yeah, week and a half. Something like that. Right around there. Now, this was a conversation that just took place with you? Or were other people present? There was probably other people around. I think Maine was over there. Josh Maine was probably around, adding that others may have been present as well. Maine died in November of 2005 at the age of 21 while in custody at the Tipton County Jail of a mixed drug intoxication of fentanyl and alprazolam, which is the generic name for Xanax, coroner Brad Nichols told the Kokomo Tribune following an autopsy. Thomas Owens Jr., a jail employee at the time, was charged with 10 counts of trafficking related to that case. He admitted to accepting money to deliver drugs to inmates that he said were brought in by visitors or family members. Owen said he would hide the items in periodicals such as magazines. The people present during the time in question all lived in the same trailer park, and Tipton people will know that it's country living. We all lived in the same court. That's why we all knew about it, Bush said. Did you do cocaine at the time? No, I never really messed with cocaine too much. Okay, what happened? That was your only acquaintance with Elizabeth prior to the second, or what? No. I mean, she'd still stop in. Like, she'd be drunk or something and drive by and see I was sitting up on the porch, and we'd still be hospitable to each other. You know what I mean? She'd come up there, sit down for a minute on the porch, talk a little bullshit, and then she'd go home. Well, when would these conversations take place? Like at night, Roberts began to grow tired of the saga Bush was telling. Well, okay, Roberts said, let me put this in perspective for you. You told me that you were in Tipton. You told me you were in Illinois. You told me you were in Florida. You told me you were in Windfall. Bush agreed. Okay, presumably between the first of the year in 2002 and December of 2002. Okay, Bush said. Now, if you were all those places, you weren't in that trailer court all the time, right? No, but I was there enough at the time. Okay, well then that's what I'm asking you. In that time frame, somewhere in there, he tails off. How often did you see Elizabeth? I don't know, like maybe I might see her once a month, maybe And it wasn't always easy. Like, it wasn't always like that. She'd come up. She never really came up to even talk to me. She talked to my dad, and the rest of the times I'd see her, she'd just drive by. You know what I mean? That's it. You really didn't know her, did you? Robert started to press him. Say what? Bush snapped back. You didn't really know her that well, did you? Oh, I know her real well. Very, very well. Okay, well, I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, but when does that refresh your recollection to how many times you actually saw her and conversed with her in the year of 2002, prior to October 2nd? We really didn't talk that much, but like I said earlier too, before, the whole year before, she was pretty much the only person I knew to get a hookup from, and we talked on a regular basis. I know Elizabeth very well. Robert switched gears and started to probe into Bush's knowledge of other players in the case. Mr.
Okay,
Neff.
hang on a minute.
Yeah.
He's trying to play off that he didn't talk to her a whole lot, but he knows her very, very well.
Yeah, I'll go back on here a second.
I mean,
yeah,
it's all deflection in my opinion. He's trying to make it seem like.
Yeah, let's go back even further than that, because do you notice how he was saying, like, I have a rent paid up to August? No, hang on, October.
Yeah,
he's trying to. It's almost like he's trying to weave in some fairy tale in between some facts to me. And I'm not a legal expert, but it just seems like there's two stories being told here. Part of it's what he knows, and then part of it, who knows
what he made up.
But the question then from there would be, who made that up? If he did make it up.
Right.
And then there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about what Andrew Bush's role was in that and what might have been covered up. Nothing that I've ever been able to prove.
Well, we do have Amanda Pratt stating that Kyle Neff said he had to go talk to Andrew Bush to get their stories straight.
Yeah. And there's another, she went back to the police later and said that Kyle told her while he was in custody that he was just going along with the story so that he could get out of jail to see his kids. I mean, It's right there for the record. It was right there in the discovery file. So, I mean, it's really easy to make. It's not even a leap. It's a short jump that, like, most of this, maybe half, who knows, is just a fairy tale. I mean,
and they used him as the lead witness in this case. That's what kills me.
So we haven't even gotten into the alcohol consumption, and you already know that he's on 120 milligrams of oxy, and if you add that to Xanax and then smoke weed,
right?
I mean, my God, like, how can you remember to swallow your own saliva, much less remember a murder that in that detail? You know what I mean? I mean, it's awful.
Well, like Misty says, Marv, that's comatose, not high.
Yeah, I mean, even for the most veteran drug addict, that is like, you're gonna need a wheelchair to get out of there if you're still alive. I mean, it's crazy.
Right.
Thanks for making that distinction, because I can honestly say that I've never done anything nearly that crazy. Right. So
I'm like, it
would almost be like you need a CPAP machine to keep breathing if you're that.
And how do you even walk?
Much less run 2 miles back to your house.
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay.
Where was I? Because I got so wrapped up into that. We're going back to Neff, right? Okay. Mr. Neff, how well do you know him? Roberts asked. Not very well, Bush said. Okay. Tell me your association with him. He's a buyer. That's about it. Bush added that Neff bought drugs from him somewhere between 8 to 12 times in the past. After drifting off course for a little bit to discuss his movements after October 2nd, Roberts began to pin down Bush's movements during the day leading up to what he allegedly witnessed, the murder. So all that day, you didn't have anything to eat, Roberts asked. I'm sure I ate something during the day, but I didn't like sit down and have a meal. Okay. The last we talked about that day, you were out at Windfall. Yeah. Okay. How long were you there? Well, it wasn't too long, probably till about like 8 o'clock. What did you do after 8 o'clock? Me and Chris took off, went in the country, smoked another blunt, more marijuana, and just chilled out for a while, rode around and talked. You know what I mean? I was pretty fucked up. I was just wanting to talk to somebody, so we were just cruising around talking. What did you talk about? Everything from women to how much we hated it here, all sorts of shit, man, just stuff like that. Okay, and then where'd you go? Chris started moaning and complaining about, oh, I got to go meet this girl, man. I got a date and blah, blah, blah. So I figured he was going to see the girl, so I just told him to drop me off at the park. So he dropped you off at the park. Yeah. Okay, I understand you had a bottle of vodka when you got there? Yeah. Where'd you get that? From the Cork and Keg across the street from BP, which would be the Village Pantry in those days, which is the eye doctor now. And the Cork and Keg, I think he means Bud and Jody's, actually. But yeah, I make a note in here. This quote remains unchanged, but the liquor store across from the Village Pantry at the time was not named the Cork and Keg. The Cork and Keg was on the other side of town near the intersection of State Roads 19 and 28, right next to the Dairy Queen, for those of you that are there now. Did you go in and buy it? Roberts asked. Yeah, there was an older dude there, sells me liquor. So what time did you go in there? That was earlier in the day. I'm not sure. It could have been, he tails off, daylight. Yeah, it could have been between 3 and 5, 3 and 6. I don't know, somewhere in there. What quantity did you buy? A fifth or a liter? I can't remember. What kind of vodka? 100 proof dark eyes. When did you start drinking that? Probably right when I got it. Okay, you bought, I want to do this chronology right. You bought the booze, the 100 proof vodka, yeah? What time did you go to Windfall? It was, so yeah, I would have had to have bought the liquor earlier because it was still right out when I got there. So about 4 o'clock. So you would have bought the liquor prior to 4. Yeah, not 6 o'clock. They then discussed again what Bush was doing in Windfall. Okay, you got done with that. What time is it when you're done in Windfall? About 8 o'clock. How did you know it was 8? That's probably because you got me working on a time schedule now. I'm kind of putting it together a little bit. It's closer to 8. Is it dark or light? It was dark. I'm not going to say it was 8 on the dot, but yeah, it was closer to 8. You got in the car and drove around with Chris? Yep. And how long did you do that? Oh, for a little while, man, about an hour and a half, actually. Then he had a date and dropped you off at the park? Yeah. Okay. You had a bottle of vodka? Yeah. How much was left in the bottle of vodka? Probably half a bottle. Okay, where did you go in the park? To Pavilion. Okay, that's the big brick building in the center. Yep, it's kind of open. Yep. Okay, how long did you stay there? Probably like 10 or 15 minutes before I seen Tabi. Okay, and this would be like what, around 9 o'clock? A little later. Yeah, a little later. How late, Roberts asked. I'm not sure, at least 10 o'clock probably. Okay, Tabi shows up about 10. Maybe, yeah. But like, I don't know. It could have been later too. Man, I'm not going to guarantee. It could have been 10. I don't know.
Is it an amazing?
We know you don't know.
Know anything?
Well, I mean, you survive that much drug use. I mean, you're going to have a whole lot of clicks and pops in your voice. So a whole lot of shiftiness about you. I'm guessing. I don't have a whole lot of experience with addiction, but I'm guessing that's, you know what I mean. Like anyway, like. But let me just say this too, before we start back up. If you're a prosecuting attorney and you're sitting through this,
yes,
and you see all this other stuff, at what point do you throw down the stop sticks? I mean, Jesus. Anyway,
well,
all right.
Not only that, his times don't match.
He can't tell you whether he got to the park at 6 or 9. I mean, good Lord, he can't tell you when he bought the vodka. Did you see the author's note in there about the liquor store?
Yes.
He didn't even know. I mean, come on.
Okay, Josh, was it common for liquor stores to sell to minors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially the one he's talking about.
Okay.
Don't ask me how I know, but yeah.
Go ahead.
Statute of limitations. But anyway, well, were you all alone in the pavilion? Uh-huh. You just you and the bottle? Yep, just me and my bottle and a pocket full of oxys.
Oh God, more oxy.
Okay, you were shooting up? No, I snorted up because I fucking threw my rig, which I put in parentheses for those who don't know, apparatus to liquefy the pill and shoot it up. I'm guessing there's a bent spoon and a lighter. That's like you see in the movies.
Oh.
I don't know for sure. Later it broke, so I just threw it out. Okay, is that the first time you snorted, or had you snorted before? Can you imagine crushing up a pill and snorting it up your nose like that? I mean,
No.
you're talking about, there's all kinds of you talk about cocaine nose, like that's gonna, oh my God. Okay. No, I started snorting them before I started shooting them, like habit-wise. Like before I ever shot them, I had snorted them. I only snorted them when I was at the park. Okay. How many did you snort? A 40, referring to 40 milligrams. Okay, so that's the third 40 milligram ingestion that you had that day, correct?
If he remembers.
Correct. Tabi comes and she's with you. No, I'm sitting there and I was already sitting by myself, chilling. I crushed up an oxy, I snorted it. And then I smoked a cigarette. And like, when I got done smoking my cigarette, I look up and I seen Tabi walking across the bridge. Which bridge? The one coming like where the pool's at. Okay. You're in the pavilion and you can tell it's her that far away. Oh, yeah, it's lit right there. Okay. How many yards do you think that's away from the pavilion? About 100 yards. Okay. She's walking towards you. Right. And you know who she is? Well, she gets even closer. She walks straight up, but yeah, I know who she is. Okay. It's dark out. You're the only one in the pavilion. Yep. You're the only one in the park. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. And she just walks up directly to you? No, she kind of more towards the hospital, Bush explained, but she was cutting through and she got by, where the piece of playground equipment in the park near the pavilion that spins around. I think it's that little like Flintstone type hut where there's the barrel. We called it the barrel roll as kids. She got right there, where all the kids play. And then I whistled to her and she seen me. Then she changed direction and started coming towards me. The participants in the deposition are looking at a map illustration of the park at this point, and Roberts tries to gain an understanding of Tabi's movements as described by Bush with the help of the visual aid. She's kind of coming at an angle, going southwest, or Roberts asked, going towards the hospital. Bush added, the hospital is due south of the park, and the properties do butt up against one another. Southeast, Roberts asked, she's heading in a southeasterly direction. And then she changes direction and goes kind of east, goes towards me. Yeah. Are you inside the pavilion or outside? Inside. Are you sitting on anything? On a bench? Okay. There are benches inside the pavilion at that time. Picnic tables. Yeah. Okay. She approaches. Does she come inside the pavilion? Uh-huh. Okay. What do you do then? She came up, walked over, and I was like, hey, what's going on? She was like, nothing, just chilling and stuff. Bush continued. She sat down for a minute. Then she popped back up, walked around, kind of antsy and stuff. And then I gave her, I was like, hey, you want to hit this? And she didn't really like vodka anyways. How does he know? But she took a little drink and then gave it back to me. We just sat there for a little while longer. Did you have anything to drink? Oh, yeah. How much did you drink? By the end of the night, I'm sure it's pretty close to gone. So that's a whole fifth of vodka, guys.
And 100 proof.
100 proof vodka, by the way.
Yeah.
Which would make a grizzly bear drunk. But anyway, by the time I don't know, I'd probably say she's like a quarter of a bottle left, by the end of the night. There's like a quarter of a bottle. Okay. You're half a bottle by the time she gets there. Right. But at the end of the night, it's probably down to about a quarter bottle because I ended up losing that bottle that night too. Of course you did. Somewhere. Okay. So you drank all but 2 sips? No, about a quarter of a bottle. You know what I'm saying? There's a quarter of a bottle. There's a half a bottle. I drink a quarter of a bottle. So it's nice to know that he understands science and physics on top of all of this. Okay, but what I'm saying of that quantity, you had all of it, but except the 2 sips she had. After Bush explained the pace at which he drank the 3/4 of the bottle, and excluding the amount, I remember laughing as much as I wrote it, excluding the amount he consumed between buying it and winding up in the park, which Bush claimed to be over the course of a 15 or 20 minute period, Roberts redirected him back to the narrative of what happened next. Then we see Liz's car pulled around, Bush said. First, I looked because I thought it was a cop and I was going to hide my liquor, because there's always cops going through there and stuff. It's their town and that's their jurisdiction, but I'll stop the commentary. Okay, where did the car come from? It came from the only entrance you can come into, you know. Is that over off of Main Street to the east? Bush wasn't sure of the street name, but pointed to Main Street on the map, which in that part of town runs between the park and Tipton High School. The car came in, took a right, went around. Bush continued. Okay, parked in the parking lot. Roberts asked. No, there's a parking lot, and then there's 2 trees that are over there, and the 2 trees, there's a little part where you can drive right between the 2 trees, you know. The spot in the park that Bush is referring to was notorious for being used as a lover's lane for teenagers and no longer exists after the city cleared out a major portion of the foliage in the park several years later. But that night, it became the backdrop of a murder, according to Bush. And there's a trash can here, and there's like, and the trees are so close, you can barely get your car through there. And that's where she parked at, right there. So if you're looking straight out from the pavilion, you can see the car. Well, it wasn't sitting that direction. We were looking that way to see her because that's the way I sat on the bench. But yeah, that's how I was looking because I was sitting on the bench facing where Tabi originally walked from. You know what I'm saying? Just how long did you and Tabi stay there? We were there like about, I don't know, like I said, about 15 minutes. And then we seen Liz and then 2 other guys appear on the other side of the park. All of a sudden, they're on the other side of the park now. Bush described that the people he and Tabi saw in the park were now to the north of the pavilion, equidistant between the 2 footbridges in the park. The bridges cross Cicero Creek, one just west of the pool, and the other further toward the east, closer to Main Street, near the horseshoe pits. If one were to start on the park side and walk across the footbridge going north and kept walking, they would eventually cross South Street and would be walking right down the middle of West Street. Okay, and you're looking from the pavilion that way. Right. And you saw the 3 people there? Could you see who they were? Not until I got closer. Okay, what made you go closer? Because Liz waved Tabi over there. You just said you didn't know who they were. She was calling Tabi's name and waved her over. She called Tabi's name from there, Bush affirmed, and waved over there.
Okay, hang on a minute. So I've stood where they say she parked and looked at the pavilion today.
Now, there's one note to make. There's been a major makeover in the park since 2002, but it doesn't change the layout of it much at all. There's just a lot less trees and a lot less foliage. That's it. So yeah,
right.
But there's a parking lot now where the horseshoe pits were, or I'm sorry, the shuffleboard courts were. I don't think that big block restroom is there anymore, but I mean, I think it's pretty much the same layout.
Right, but you got to remember, okay, there was more foliage, more trees,
a ton more trees,
and less lighting than there is now.
I mean, and it's night in October, so yes, it would be extremely dark.
Right.
But if you're looking out the pavilion to the northeast, towards like where the South Pole and the basketball courts are, there is a lot of light coming from that side. But back in those days, there was a very long line of very tall old pine trees. So it's easy to say that he wouldn't have been able to tell who it was unless he knew Liz's voice when she yelled. And it's you if there's no one in the park and it's quiet, you can hear someone talk from that far away. If it's, I don't know, 150 yards, 200 yards, I don't know.
Right. But then if you're Elizabeth and you're looking into the pavilion,
yeah, it's probably pitch black. Yeah.
Right. You're not.
That's what you're saying. Okay, so the opposite angle vision. Yeah.
Who's in there?
No way. Not a chance. That's a pretty long distance, isn't it? It's a good distance, but they weren't all the way there yet. Like when you started walking, they kept walking too until they got closer to the trees, you know. What direction were they coming? Excuse me. They like stopped when they were yelling at us. I don't really know where they came from. Well, from where the swimming pool is, where were they? Where the concrete bridge is? Referring to the map, Bush said, the swimming pool is right here. They were like right here, and they were walking towards the pine trees. You know what I'm saying? Almost in the road when they yelled at us. Okay. And that does matter because that's a lot closer to the trees, but still a very far, and it doesn't change the lighting in the pavilion. Okay. When you got there, what happened? Tabby or Liz goes, where the fuck's my shit at, bitch? Just like that. And then Liz clobbered her with a pistol, just pistol whipped her, like with the gun in her head, and hit her upside the head with the gun in her hand. Which side of the head did she hit her on? I believe it was the left side. Autopsy photos did show that Tabby had significant trauma to the side of her face around the eye area. Forensic pathologist stated at the trial that the injuries were to the right side of her face, however.
Right.
Okay, what did she do then? Fell to her knees. Okay, what happened then? Then I started to lean in then. What do you mean lean in? Lean in to stop, like stop Liz. And then I got a gun pointed in my face and my arms held, and Liz told me to not move and not say a fucking word. Then Bush continued, as she turned around again, she fucking bam, popped the cap right in her head, right in the face. And then I hung my head down and I heard another shot go off. So and then this is Roberts. So when shot number 2 goes off, you're not watching. My head was down. Okay, now you're saying you're being held. When you started to move for Liz? Yep. How did you try to move for Liz? Like I was pretty fucked up. I wasn't actually moving quickly, you know what I mean? But I was moving towards her as if to fucking grab onto her. I was going to grab her. I was going to straight up pick her up and probably slam her. He probably couldn't even pick up his own arm. I don't know what I was going to do, which was nothing because you were a jelly if you're even alive. I wasn't going to let Tabby get beat up like that. And then I got held. Okay. Who held you? Yates and Neff. Keep in mind, Yates is in the room. Okay. Who had what arm? That I'm not sure of. Okay. Yates had one arm. Kyle had the other. Yep. Okay. And you're not sure which arm? No, I'm not. When I went over this earlier, when I had the video taken, I said that people were in specific spots. And the more I think about it, I can't honestly sit there and say that that's the exact spots they were at. I can't say, well, he was on my right and he was on my left. I can't say that and be truthful. So I don't even know. You don't know who was there? Bush seems to get flustered at this point. No, I don't know who. I don't know which. I don't know whether Neff was on the right or Yates was on my right. But in any event, they, as you say, you lunged forward. Or kind of fell forward. More of a lunge, yeah. Okay. They grabbed, each one of them grabbed one of your arms. Right. Then a gun got right in my face as soon as they held them to my arms. Okay. And that was by Elizabeth? Yep. And then she said, don't move. Okay. Then she turned around and you said, pop Tabitha? Yeah, Tabby was lying on the ground and she got up and turned her head like that, turns to the left. As soon as she turned her head, that's when she got it. Okay. And when I read your statement before, you said something about getting blood on you. Yeah, I got blood in my eye all over my face. We have to stop there.
Yeah.
We have to.
Okay.
And I think you know why. Go ahead.
First of all,
Can I go one more paragraph and then we can stop?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And then Robert says, okay, none on your clothes. Not that I'm aware of. I turned my shoes and stuff in because that's the shoes I was wearing that night. Some might have got on it. And I don't really recollect what pair of pants I was wearing. Sure you don't.
I'm sure he doesn't.
All right. So there's that. But you got blood in your eye all over your face. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so first of all, what he's describing does match some of Tabby's injuries. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean.
The being hit, we know she was hit on the side of the head. Okay.
Well, apparently he was, he was so high and drunk that his eyes stopped doing the reverse thing because he thought she got hit in the wrong side of the head. But I want to, yeah, you're right. So those injuries, some of them are consistent, but also there was a ton more trauma. And there's just not, the one thing I want to say before we get into the blood part is that there's just no way she may have been killed like that, but there's just no way it happened that fast because of the amount of injuries that the pathologist says were inflicted prior to death.
Exactly.
So unless she showed up at the pavilion all beat to shit, she would not, she wouldn't have had those wounds before being killed.
I agree.
I mean, there's just no way. If you believe the pathologist, which I do, because IU Health is the best healthcare system in the state of Indiana, and was then too. And when Tipton had a big murder like this, they sent him down there. So,
well, and okay, so you've got the injury on the side of her face. What about the black eye? Big black eye.
Refresh my memory. Can you remember what Dr. Pless said about the nature of injuries to the face? I know that there was neck, there was jawline, there was a black eye, the pistol whip, but did he say? He said that they surely weren't from the butt of the gun, but from a fist, right? Is that what he said?
It was thought that it was a fist and a ring on the fist that made a mark on her eye and cuts on her face. But then you have to remember there was also the
Andrea makes a good point here. The laceration
came out her neck, and he said that could have been a possible second gunshot.
Yeah, there was the shot through the back that went out through the neck. That decomposition cannot definitively say was a gunshot wound.
Right.
But
there was a laceration to the neck that Plus thought was another gunshot wound.
But assuming that it was, that would be an exit wound. And if you think about if you believe what he says, the trajectory of the gun at that point would have been
right.
And if there's an exit wound, where's the bullet? In the ground. Let's go back to the blood. Yes. I'm not the only person this week that's pointed this out, and I'm not going to say who that was, but
right.
If you have enough blood spatter to get it all over your face, you're going to get it on your eye. Yeah. If you're going to get splattered in the face with blood, what's going to happen to your shirt? What's going to happen to, especially if you're stationary, you're being held.
And all three of them would have had it, not just Bush.
Now, can we go back to the weather? Last time I was on your show, we talked about the weather.
Yes.
There was no precipitation, no wind. It was unseasonably warm for October. When they found her that day in the creek, if she would have been shot right by those trees, there would have still been, the ground would have been messed up. It would have been covered in, the blood might have been browned at that point, but there would have been plenty of DNA of Tabitha Raines on the ground. They found nothing. Nothing.
And they would have found it where they laid her down twice to have.
I mean, if you get shot in the head, unfortunately, I know this. You get shot in the head, you're going to have it. It's going to be like a faucet out of your nose, out of your ears. If you're going to lose your faculties, so your mouth's open. I mean, it's just going to be gory. There's just no way. There's no way.
Right.
None.
Right.
No way that any of that's true.
And the fact that they found absolutely no.
They scoured the park, metal detectors, the cadaver dogs. They had the whole deal out there. I mean, there's just no way. So.
And the funny part is you mentioned when you're the prosecutor, at what point do you say this guy's full of shit?
Well, he was full of drugs, that's for sure. I mean.
Well, I know, but.
I mean, so.
You're going to use him as your star witness in this murder case?
When you understand the upper class dynamics of Tipton, and then you piece this together with that, this is why there's a breeding ground to this day of just conspiracy theories out the ears, because none of it matches. We all know the political back hallways of Tipton County. Mm-hmm. The only piece of evidence is the gun and the bullet, and that guy didn't go down for murder. He took a plea. So,
right.
Anyway, okay. Let me keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. When the shot rang out, what did the other two? What did Neff and Yates do? They dropped my arms, kinda. Immediately, Bush affirmed, then added, and kind of dropped their jaws as if they didn't believe what had just happened. His back was to them. His back was to them. How would he know what their faces were doing?
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Okay. So they were surprised, extremely surprised. How do you know? He has eyes in the back. I guess that amount of drugs causes eyes to grow in the back of your head. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah.
So they were surprised, extremely surprised. Okay, I think he used the word awe. That's not the word I would describe it as, but he says, yeah. Okay, tell me about that. What do you mean by awe? Like almost like they didn't know that she was going to do it. Like they thought that maybe she was just going to try to scare her. That sounds rehearsed as hell. Roberts started to get specific down to the minute details. Well, now here's a lady with a gun, okay? And they grab a hold of you when you start to, after she's hit somebody else with a gun. So you really don't know whether they're trying to protect you or what they're doing, Roberts said. I don't know what's going on, Bush said. The irony. You're not saying they were trying to confine you, are you? I don't know. They let you go right away. As soon as the gunshot went off, they let me go. Able to go wherever you wanted to go? Roberts asked. And somebody said, holy fuck, Bush added. Okay, I think you said that was Yates in your previous statements. Yeah, and I said it in my other statements that it was Neff too. And then and that's another thing I'm confused on, that I got to say, I don't really know who said that, you know. I know somebody said holy fuck and like in disbelief, you know. And you're not sure who. I'm not quite sure. I thought it personally, in my gut feeling, I thought it was Yates because I said Neff. And then I took it back and said, no, it's Yates. And that statement was back on March 20th. Right. Okay. And since March 20th and May 5th, you're not sure. I'm not. I can't I can't be definite. I can't be definite because I think about you. You know what I mean? And I try to play it over and over again, but I can't. I don't. Okay. Then after that, what did you do? Liz bent over in front of her head, lifted up under her arms, and was like, come on. And like, who was she talking to? I'm assuming to Yates and Neff. And then they just kind of stood there. And then she said it again, like a little more firmly. And then they grabbed each one of her legs. And as they did that, I took off. Where'd you go? I ran straight home. You ran straight home? Straight. Well, I stopped for a minute on Black Bridge to catch my breath. Where's Black Bridge?
Oh, yeah, like he's going to run anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a little bridge that's kind of hidden behind CBS right over there. Bush pointed to the map. Black Bridge has long been a popular destination for the youth in Tipton over the years, in a pretty secluded area south of the Pizza Shack restaurant. In order to get to Black Bridge from the park, Bush may have accessed the bridge from the train tracks east of the high school, turning due south, or could have gone down the footbridge onto West Street and then weave through the neighborhoods before picking up the tracks and turning south. And this is where the visual aid is, and then picks up a couple pages later.
Okay.
Catch your breath, everyone.
Oh my goodness.
That was a whole lot of you know what to shovel. So, yeah.
And up to this point, he doesn't mention anything about Elizabeth Bolser running after him across the bridge, telling Yates and Neff to go get him. And they're like, nah, he's too wasted. Don't bother.
Yeah, that conveniently gets skipped in this deposition.
Yeah.
They just let him go and then pick up the body. I mean, you know, I'm not a mastermind criminal, but I'm guessing in the heat of the moment, even if it was the heat of the moment, like I'm not letting that guy get away.
Right.
Because if I'm bad enough to commit a murder, I'm bad enough to commit too, and I'm not going away for it.
Right.
I mean, now that's pure speculation, but it just doesn't seem to match logically with what you would do in that situation. Whether you believe it was one shot, two shots, whatever, you probably still had a bullet to clip and you probably could have used it.
Yeah, or that he said,
I've never heard that. I've heard people say that, but I've never heard that. Where does that come from, Andrea?
I think that is in.
I don't not believe it. I've never seen it. Because again, I've told you the story and I don't know what documents I didn't have.
Hey, guilty of crime. I think that's in one of the depositions or statements that we have.
Okay.
The other thing I noticed was he said she bent down and scooped her up underneath the arms.
Mhm.
But he doesn't say if she was in back of her head or doing that side scoop up that they all talk about.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just assumed she picked her up from the back and then held the back of her and under her arms. I don't know. I mean, it leaves it for imagination because you can't really say for sure, right?
Right, because in all the other depositions, they're talking about her doing this side pickup where she's on the side of her,
Okay.
and she takes her arms and hooks it under her arms and picks her up, and that's how she didn't get any blood on her.
Yeah, that's so ridiculous.
But we tried that.
Blood is amorphous, and gravity takes. There's no way you're not going to get covered in blood carrying a dead body that far. If the shooting happened in direct succession to picking her up, a matter of seconds, maybe she's still profusely bleeding out of her face.
Well, we know she was bleeding still because they said it was oozing out of the wound when they found her.
When they pulled her up out of the yeah. I mean, yeah.
And we can honestly say that there's no way the side scoop could have worked because we tried it.
No way. Yeah.
And there was no way you could carry a person like that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. We had a girl that was the same size as Tabi and everything. And we had another female about the same size as Liz.
Yeah.
She couldn't do it. And this person was alive.
So
wasn't dead.
Sorry for the morbid
dead
weight reference, but yeah, I mean it matters. Yeah.
It mattered. Oh my goodness. They all should have been covered in blood.
And the ground. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I'm not the only one that isn't sipping the crazy Kool-Aid here.
And no blood.
None. Like as if the storm of a century blew through there and just washed it all away, like Jesus' sins on people. You know, it's like just ridiculous. All right, let me get a drink here and
crazy. I'm telling you.
So we've been going for an hour. What do you want to do?
What it's up to you. If you want to stop and do another.
I'm good to go. I want to see how far are we to the end of the chapter. So I'm beginning 151. The end of the chapter is 5 pages. You want to keep going?
Yeah, let's.
And then we can have a little bit of closing talk. So, all right.
Yeah.
Roberts,
run to the bathroom again, but
all right. I'll go ahead. Roberts then instructed Bush to look at the map and, taking a pen, wanted him to mark on it what he was describing in terms of where the shooting took place. Bush then said, "I don't like this map." Then Rich cut in. "Do you specifically expect him, in terms of looking at this map, to place a 1 just in the general vicinity of where?" "Yeah," Roberts said, after a lengthy back and forth where the specifics of the moments leading up to the murder were rehashed again, a sequence where Bush asked if the interview was almost over. Roberts resumed a post-murder timeline questions. "Okay, and then the shooting takes place and you leave," Roberts asked. "Yep." "Okay, you don't tell anybody about this?" "What's that?" Bush asked, seeming confused. "You don't tell anybody about this until the 20th of March? "Nope, not a soul." "Okay, and were you interviewed by police between October 2nd and March 20th? "No, not. Wasn't interviewed, no." "Okay, I saw some statements that said something about a general mailbox in the trailer court where there was a note." "Yeah, I brought something in on my own. I wasn't like sat down and questioned or nothing. I brought something in on my own. Somebody wrote a letter, and I find it to believe that it was Liz that wrote the letter that said Drew Bush and his friend Chris from Florida killed Tabitha Raines. As soon as I seen that letter, I called the cops and told them to come pick it up. They came and picked it up, and then I came in and talked to Gary Stout about it later." "What did you say to him? What did he say to you?" "I just basically told him how pissed off I was about this and that I wanted him to find out who the hell it was because I was going to sue him for defacement of character. It was really, really starting to piss me off, and that's about it. We didn't get into it that further. I mean, he didn't ask me, you know. I mean, like, where I was on the night of blah, blah, blah. We didn't get into that. So you were in there talking about suing somebody because they had put this thing in your mailbox. You thought it was Liz. Yeah. Well, I to this day, I know it was Liz. I'm pretty sure of it. You never saw the note? Yeah, I seen the note. Okay. Tell me, was there handwriting on it? Was it printed out? Yeah, it's her handwriting in black Sharpie marker. Roberts then indicated after 2 hours of questioning that he was finished. According to case records, Alden also deposed Bush on the same day that Roberts did. In the deposition with Alden, Bush laid out roughly the same basic circumstances, but did admit that he had a bad attitude towards Balser due to her previous drug dealings where Bush felt Balser shortchanged him. Additionally, when Alden asked him to say how high he was from the OxyContin consumption in the minutes leading up to the time he witnessed the murder, Bush gave a troublesome answer that would seem to indicate his ability to remember the minute details in the way he recounted them to investigators would have been unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So on a range from 1 to 100, and 1 being just totally sober and 100 being unconscious, Alden asked, I was 99 then, Bush said.
And they're going to trust his details.
99. Barely hanging on to consciousness.
Oh my God.
But considering all the times you've been high without passing out, would you say that you were about as high as you could get without passing out at this point in time? Alden asked of the night of the murder. Oh yeah, Bush said. I was real close. I mean, I went home, and by the time I went home, I was scared sober, you know. Doesn't work that way. Okay, but Alden followed. At the time you were at the park? Yeah, at the time, Bush added, I was pretty close to unconscious. Yeah, I was pretty close. This is on the record. I didn't make that. I didn't make this up. I can find it in my documents exactly where. Okay, and at the same time that Liz called you over to the shooting, you were still in the same zone, right? Oh yeah, well yeah. That's when the other OxyContin pill just started to kick in. Which other pill? Alden implored, seemingly knowing that he was painting a picture that he could use to his advantage later on to help portray just how inebriated Bush was at the alleged time that the shooting occurred. The one I snorted, Bush explained, because it kicks in like about 10 or 15 minutes after you do it, which isn't much longer than it would be if you took it orally. I don't understand why you... Alden also asked Bush about his knowledge of the death of a neighbor of Bush's when he lived in Tipton by the name of Shane Jackson, which reportedly occurred in July of 2002. Bush admitted to Alden that he was interrogated by Stout regarding the death, but that he wasn't with Jackson when he died. He stated that he believed Jackson's death to be an accidental overdose from using patches made from a morphine compound. But Bush also seemed to contradict himself when pressed for more specifics about this point. And did he buy drugs from you? Alden asked. Who? Bush replied, the person that died. What's his name again? Alden asked. No, Shane Jackson, Bush said, answering both questions. Were you with him at the time he died? No. So what knowledge do you have of it? You're shaking your head, Alden said. Yeah, I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know anything about that, Bush replied. And that's all you ever told to the police about it? Well, I dropped a few lines to Gary Stout to help him out a little bit, you know. I told him where the morphine patches came from.
Yeah, he knew.
Where the drugs came from? Alden asked. Yeah. Okay. And what did you tell him? They came from Shane's grandmother, Bush said. Okay, what promises have the police made to you or the prosecutor made to you regarding your testimony, besides the fact that if you testify truthfully, that you will not be charged in any way with Tabi's homicide? They haven't promised me anything else, Bush said. Alden also laid out the foundation for what would be a compelling moment in front of the jury during Bush's trial, or during Balser's trial, when Bush officially took the stand to give his testimony, and involved the movements of the gun, in which Bush described as Balser's motion to him to stay out of the situation.
Yeah.
I see her move her arm like that, Bush motioned, and then I remember the hammer getting pulled back.
That's huge.
When was the hammer pulled back? Alden asked. Right before she shot her in the head, Bush said. Okay, so the hammer was not pulled back when she had the gun pointed towards you? I don't think. It couldn't have been because she pulled it back when she turned her hand back. Okay, when you saw her arm move, if you saw her, you've used the gesture with your thumb, Alden continued. Uh-huh, Bush affirmed. Did you see her thumb? Yeah. Pull the hammer back? Yeah. When the ballistics test matched the bullet that struck Tabi in the head to the gun Kyle Neff gave Bolser to use as a scare tactic, Alden knew he had struck gold.
Mm-hmm.
During the trial, with Bush on the stand, the gun, a .38 caliber Taurus Model 85, already having been submitted into evidence, Alden asked Bush to hold the gun as Bush described the movements Bolser made during the trial, or during the shooting. Alden reminded Bush that during the deposition, he had described in detail how Bolser had pulled back on the hammer before firing the gun. When Alden had Bush try to demonstrate that motion, Bush was unable to. The reason? The model of Taurus revolver had no hammer function. It was a damning piece of testimony which aided Alden in obtaining Bolser's acquittal. End of chapter. Whew. I can't believe.
There was no hammer on the gun to pull back, you guys.
And the prosecutor still ramrod.
Still used him as a key, the star witness.
The witness.
The star witness.
Yeah. So that's the end of the chapter. So we can discuss whatever else you thought of when you were taking notes if you want.
Miracle Heart says, unbelievable. And now you understand why Elizabeth Bolser was acquitted.
I think that there's a bursted pipe at the sewage plant or something because it's getting deep in here.
It is. I mean, if you guys got questions, put them in the chat. We'll answer them.
Yeah, just we can start. I mean,
you can clearly see there is no way that this guy could have remembered anything. He said he was 99% comatose out of 100.
Yeah, I'm not a geologist, but that's pretty high on the scale.
That's the amazing J. Rich. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean.
And Judge Steve Nation of Hamilton County didn't call him his trial.
Why would you even let it go to trial?
I don't know. That's what I don't get.
I mean, I only did crime for a few years in my journalism career, only about 2 out of the 13 total, but I can tell you that I've sat in trials and whoever that is for Tabby Drake 2002, I'm not going to speculate. Mark makes a good point. Like, at the very least, someone should have said, Jay, go back to the drawing board because this is not the only thing that's based in fact is the gun. The rest of it could just complete a complete Disney Pixar fairy tale.
Right.
So
a mistrial, like you said, I don't even know how it went to trial in the first place.
So it's very important to also point out in conjunction with this, Marv, that it seems awfully coincidental to me that we're reading this now. And the book has been written and published for a couple of years, but there's a reason why all the files from this case have been under lock and key, like Fort Knox, since the day the trial ended. Yes. Because there's so many things that we probably don't even know and might never know. Yeah. But there's a reason that this has been held so closely and has been lied about as a closed case. Jay Rich lied to my face, not to my face, but through a courier.
Right.
That's just not how this works. Like, it's not a closed case. And I think if Mark can say that even the state police told him they consider the matter closed because they feel like they got the right person and there's no one else to investigate.
Really?
That's what Mark told me, and I don't think Mark's ever lied to me.
No, and I agree that that's what he was told. But seriously, you're going to think that they had the right people?
It should make you mad as a taxpayer that nobody on the right side of the law has said, wait a second.
Right.
Nobody. Not a single person. So.
I mean, this just proves that just the lack of blood evidence alone proves she was not killed in that park.
Yeah, I mean, Andrea says it right there. We're going on 20 years, and this thing sat cold because it's considered closed. That's not how this works. I'm not going to speak on that. I'm not going to speak on that last one, but yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been so much fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and like I said, what is said in your statements or depositions that you have, we have other things that they said.
I wish I would have waited, but it had already been 7 years. I had to do something with it.
No, I
you know
know.
what I mean? But like, it's almost want to go back and write a second edition with adding stuff in it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Writing about murders is so heavy on my soul, especially when it's so many people that I grew up with and were really close to. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And it's just absurd how this is all just being covered up. It's hush hush. And that community is so paralyzed in fear that they won't say what happened.
Mother of Maesters, I'm not even going to try. The one at 916 there, my time. That's a very important point to make because my friends and I often joke that we were very lucky to be that last generation that got to grow up without everyone having a smartphone.
Yeah.
And I think I told you last time we were on camera together that that's the one thing that really does hurt this case. If it happened, you know, I mean,
a year later.
Well, whenever the first BlackBerry came out, right? I mean,
right.
I mean, Mother there makes a very important point that it's just a victim of circumstance and of the time in which it happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it just floors me how they could even use anything he said.
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's just, this is the most Barney Fife case I've ever seen. It really is. I mean, when you think about and we've been on here for an hour and 15 minutes, and it's a coincidence that this is the most this is when, the climax of the book really starts to take shape. But it's also like when you read that chapter 7 alone, if you don't even read the Pratt deposition, if you don't even read, what the interviews of the family later on, it's just like you read chapter 7 alone, and it's like there's this none of this can be proven much, so and then there's things that just cannot be true as well.
Right.
It just goes back to the point that how did this ever go to trial? How did it ever? I don't know. I don't understand it. So this can be as often as you'd like, Marv. We can do this until we get to the end. We're over the halfway point now. So, and I think we're through the most weedy deposition parts as well. So,
okay. It was started at the beginning. Yeah, I got to put the live journal link, I think, in her Discord. I think that's the only thing I don't have in there.
There's some interesting things in there. There's a whole lot of fluff, but if you read in her patient, there's a lot of little things in there that I believe there were some actual players of the murder that got involved in the typing in that.
Oh, really?
Mark, is that correct? There was at least one of the people that were involved or allegedly involved got on there, or maybe it was the mother. Anyway, there were people on there defending Liz Balser. Mark could say for sure if Liz herself got on there to defend herself. That would, yep. Liz was there. Yeah. Well, and I mean, honestly, I grew up with Liz. I know Liz, but they didn't prove that she was involved at all.
No.
You can say what you want about the rest of her record and the rest of her life, but there's no way to prove that she was involved at all. And that wasn't a fairy tale.
Right.
I mean, that's just a fact. The only one they can prove was involved was the person who had family ties to the gun. That's it.
Right.
And then when you think about the sexual trysts, and you think about the crazy wife, and you think about there were parts of houses being deep cleaned right at that time. There were other houses where alleged parties took place that no one ever even cared to look at.
Correct.
Reeks of conspiracy.
And the fact that Buffy and Mark had the equipment to go search that dump, and they
were going to do it free of
without
taxpayer burden, free of taxpayer burden. And Tipton County said no. So,
because if you remember going back, I know we haven't talked about it, but there was supposedly items of Tabby's and Kyle Neff's put into a bin in a shed, and Debbie Neff, Kyle Neff's mother, just threw them out, didn't even look through them or anything.
I have as airtight of a source as airtight as can be, that for a fact there were yay big, well, you know how your basic plastic basement tote bin looks like for your Christmas decorations and stuff. There were uncountable amounts of these bins that were just tossed right in the dumpster and taken straight to the landfill. And if you remember in one of Kyle's depositions, he said he hid the purse and the pants and whatever else, a belt, I think, like in one of those bins. So you have the owner of the property then, we're not going to look at these. We're not going to look at these. We're just going to toss them all in the dumpster. And if you're having
who does that?
If you're having people that are on your payroll doing that, of course they're just going to be like, okay, I mean, whatever, like, you know, nothing to see here. But
I didn't meet Liz until 2004, 2005. She was my neighbor in Windfall, and she was something else.
She was something else far before then, but yeah. You know, I mean, I can only judge her on her record.
Right.
But again, I will say this, like, I'm not going to walk around saying, oh, she's a murderer. They didn't prove it at all. And then the American justice system, there comes a burden of proof, and they didn't meet it. No. Any jury would have been like, you can't send this chick away for life for something that they didn't even come close to proving. In fact, if you want to go really technical, Bush perjured himself on the stand. Exactly. When he said that. Yeah. That's a fact. That's perjury. Yeah. And why didn't he get dinged for that? Why didn't he get dinged for that? And so there's theories. I can't prove any of them. No one will ever be able to prove that Bush was a paid actor for this. I agree. That's what I've been told. I can't prove that, and I don't put things on my name that I can't verify. Right. It could be the case. I will never be able to prove that. But when you hear all this other bullshit, sorry to use that word, but I mean, when you hear all this, I mean, anything could be true. Anything could have been the case. Like, and then when you think about the other cases that got swept under the rug right around that time, which Alden points out, it's easy to, and you know how these backroom lawyer prosecutor deals, hey, we'll make this go away if you do this. It happens all the time in this country. Yeah. Well, and you got to remember too, you know, you've got Shane Jackson, you've got Bush. Now, it's been said, I don't know if it's true or not, so this is alleged, that that Bush's father is the one that put all those patches on Shane Jackson. That's what I've heard as well. And the reason Bush was the star witness in this case is to get his father and himself out of trouble for Shane Jackson. And I've even heard the total amount that he was paid. Wow. I've been told that amount, but again, no way to prove that. I'm sure it wouldn't be on the Tipton County website books of 2002 for sure. Right. Wow. All right. We can do another chapter. How long is chapter 8? That chapter 8 is really short. It's the motion of Lamine. Okay. So we can even do chapter 8 and some of 9 tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. Or Thursday night. Hang on just a second. Best for you. That's Friday. Yeah, I can do Friday night. Okay. Because I'm gonna have to be here for another thing anyway. So yeah. Same time, Friday. Yep, Friday. Friday at 8. All right. Oh yes, Rich's favorite plea bargain meeting place
with defense lawyers was Jim Dandy.
right in front of God and everybody, getting you some apple butter and biscuits and scheming up deals, man. Although Jim Dandy has some really good home fries, man. They really do. I miss my home fries from Jim Dandy. I hope that the Jim Dandy in Tipton never closes, because there are ones now that are going out of business in other towns. Yeah. But so someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the people that at one time that owned the Jim Dandy in town also owned the Dairy Queen in town. There were two separate franchises, but they shared an office right across from Jim Dandy at one time. Yeah. So
yeah, Andrea might know that better than I would.
Yeah, the Jim Dandy Dairy Queen offices were definitely across the street from the Jim Dandy, right next to the church and the funeral home.
Okay.
Reasoners.
Well, and as you know, I was in Tipton last week and put in a FOIA request to Tipton County Clerk. And I got a thing that said I have to have a signed copy. So I have to send a signed copy to Hamilton and to the Tipton Police Department. And I'm hoping to I asked for all statements and depositions from Elizabeth Balser and Jonathan Yates.
I hope that someday we finally see those. I can't wait to finally see those. I should have asked Robert Alden, because Robert Alden, back when I wrote the book, and I were on a speakable relationship, and I don't know if he would have ever given them up, but I never asked. So, yeah.
Yes, same owners for Jim Dandy and Dairy Queen. And Andrea even gave, I think, the name.
Yeah.
So once I get that, I now know what I have to put in my FOIA requests. And I'm going to request some videos also, Josh, because there was a couple videos.
There's videos?
There was some VHS tapes taken.
If you get those, they're public record, and you got to play them.
Oh, I will.
On the air.
I will, because
for sure.
That's
I mean, come
Kyle
on.
Neff in the park 2 different times describing where and what happened.
Twice?
Yes, because the second time he told a different story, and that's when Gary Stout pulled his plea deal. And then Gary Stout ended up passing away from cancer. Yeah. And then Jay Rich took over and gave him an even better plea deal.
This is a verifiable fact. And I hate to say this, but it's true. I'm not going to get in trouble for saying it. There were people that witnessed Jay Rich and the mother of Kyle Neff embracing and having a kiss on the cheek during the trial, out in the lobby. I mean, come on.
Well, it's alleged that Jay Rich and Kyle Neff's mother, their families have known each other for generations. They've gone on trips together and everything else. He should have never, ever been the prosecutor.
Well, so the Sherrill family, which Debbie's a Sherrill, and her brother Mike, and then they didn't move to Tipton until Debbie was like almost done with high school. So I don't know if that can be verified another way, but the Sherrills did not live in Tipton until the late 70s. So
okay.
That's all I know for sure, but maybe somebody can verify that. There's somebody that will know for sure. But when you think about, because I do know that Jay Rich and Tony Frawley went all the way from elementary school up to graduate from high school together. That's true. And how they didn't get a special prosecutor from another county just blows my mind.
Right.
You see that all the time now. How did this one not get that? I mean, you see what happened in Delphi? They took it all the way out of Delphi. I mean, they had the trial in Delphi, but they shipped people in.
Yep.
And they didn't change prosecutors. But Nick McClellan, I don't think there's any way to prove that he was family ties to anybody that was on the hook for murder in that case. So it's different. But, they take it very seriously, and how this one only got moved one county away and kept the prosecutor who happened to be best friends with the detective and the owner of the restaurant.
Well, and I'm going to say allegedly, because I do not know for sure, but I have heard allegedly that Jay Rich and Debbie Neff were more than friends.
I mean,
I've also heard that
I'm not going to speak on that because I don't know.
Rich and Liz Balser's mother.
Debbie,
more friends.
I mean, anybody that knows me knows that Debbie Neff was my mom's boss for 25 years. Anybody that knows me knows that Wes Pike was my orthodontist or my oral surgeon. So I won't speak on that. I don't know. Yeah. As a journalist with integrity, I was around them, all four of these people all the time, and I never saw anything that would ever be. But they wouldn't have been that obvious in public until you think of the fact that they, kissed on the cheek and hugged during the trial. So,
right.
All right. So yeah, Friday at 8, I'll be ready to go.
Yep. It's Friday, 7 p.m. Central and 8 p.m. Eastern. So absolutely. We'll do chapter 8 because that's short. And
get it over far into 9 we want, right?
Exactly.
And Friday night's a little different than this night because it's not a work night. So
right.
So all right.
He hugged her and kissed her right in the lobby after Balser's acquittal.
Yep. There were multiple eyewitnesses for that.
Junior, if you're Central Time, it's going to be 7 p.m. If you're Eastern Time, it's 8 p.m.
Junior, where do you live? We'll make it easier.
I think he's Michigan, so he should be Central Time, I think.
Yeah. I don't even think that the Southwestern. Yeah, I think Michigan's all on the Eastern Time zone. Yeah. So what Marv is saying is true. If it's Eastern Time 8, Wisconsin Time, Central Time 7, Chicago Time 7. So.
Yep. All right, Josh, thanks, and have a good night, everyone. We'll be back on Friday. Bye.